The world today is lacking in both masculine and feminine energy. Many people are looking for help to regain the power to be everything that they want to be. Today I talk with Mina Irfan, a wife, mother, and coach who is helping women to, as she says it, fall back in love with their divine nature. Welcome, Mina.
Thank you so much, Noah, for having me.
It's my pleasure. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself, please?
Well, as you said, I am a wife, a mother of three, and I have a very passionate, exciting business also where I help thousands of women kind of reconnect with who they are at their core by finding their femininity. Now, I have my own personal sort of story where I was a victim of child sexual abuse when I was a little girl. And I did not know that this had kind of put me in survival and sort of masculine energy. And so as I grew up, I found myself very successful in life, kind of a go getter, very driven. And no matter what I did, relationship after relationship just kept failing. And I found myself in my 20s having this successful real estate business, and I was surrounded by all of these successful men that wanted nothing to do with me as a woman. They saw me as competition. They saw me as one of the boys. And I just couldn't understand like what was it about me that was kind of they wanted to be my friend, but they weren't attracted to me. Um, Fast forward a little bit in my late 20s, I did meet, the man of my dreams, and it was a very quick kind of romance. We were engaged in 2 weeks, married in 2 months, and it was amazing. And then all of a sudden, it goes downhill really quickly. And this man that had just swept me off my feet was now competing with me, really turned off by me. I almost felt like I would enter the room and he would feel repelled by me, even though he was, he is a very high value man, wanting to provide for me. And I just couldn't figure out what was going on. So that's how I fell into this work myself. So I've done my work. I've lived this journey myself.
Yes, I noticed you made physical changes, and I'm sure that was the result of internal changes that you made as well, and it reflecting on your on what you chose to appear like. And it's very interesting you mentioned that the competition with men and the acting as a in a masculine space, how that really changes your energy and how people perceive you. And it's really it's complicated when you're competing with men who aren't you're not in a relationship with. But with
Hmm.
your own husband, it's disastrous for marriages, and that is a really common thing. Before I was mentioning that both men and women are lacking in their sex's natural energy very often. Very often, what ends up happening is if the woman competes better than the man becomes emasculated, he loses energy, and what happens is the woman then, and he might even start taking on a kind of feminine energy, and the wife, she will see that, feel nervous or concerned or worried that she doesn't have a protector and provider, and now she ups her competitive masculine spirit, and it's a terribly self-reinforcing cycle that damages a lot of marriages. What you're doing is very important for helping women in that way. You have a lot of videos where you speak about femininity, and what does that really mean to you?
So the old Mina would have told you, oh, femininity is, putting on makeup and dressing nice. And I think that is what I hear from a lot of women as well. They think femininity has to do with your sort of outward experience, or appearance. But we all know plenty of women that are, groomed to the nines and look very feminine on the outside, but the energy that they're projecting from the inside is very masculine and off-putting masculine energy men. So, what femininity is, to me, is the physical human manifestation of feminine energy. So, by nature, kind of the laws of the universe, everything has feminine and masculine energy. Places have feminine or masculine energy. Things have feminine and masculine energy. In fact, if you are bilingual and speak other languages, in other languages, often they refer to items as having either masculine or feminine quality. We have the word it in English, so we miss a lot of that, right? Places, right? So Maui and Manhattan will have very different feels and energies. So this is not just between men and women. And I start there with people because it helps them kind of let down their defense system that this isn't a he, she thing. Masculine energy, feminine energy exists within all realms. So when we speak about femininity, it is the human manifestation of feminine energy.
Excellent. So, and how is it then that women can, well, better question, why should women be feminine though? Why is it important for them? What are they getting out of cultivating their feminine energy?
That's a great question. And I think one of the things that's kind of like a aha thing for the women that come and find my work is that you are feminine, right? Whether you know it or not, by your natural essence and nature, you are feminine. Being anything other than what you are requires a great deal of effort on your part. And this isn't just kind of a woo woo energy thing. Scientifically speaking, if you are exerting a lot of energy in being anything other than you are, that puts a lot of strain on your body, on your nervous system, and it alters your hormones. And that is why these days we're finding so many women with all sorts of hormonal imbalances and health issues. A lot of the women that come to me are already on medications for antidepressants and hormonal therapies and all sorts of things. And it's like it's not something that they have to become. It's what they have to unbecome to be who they really are.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. I really think that not we, society has been lying to women since about the last 75 years or so, telling them that femininity is weakness and that if they imitate men, they will become stronger. And the reality is, we have the more women are on mood and mind altering medications than aren't.
Yeah,
So something is really off with that. And I say a lot of times to people like you and me who are in this industry that all we really have to do is tell women the truth. We
exactly.
have to start telling them the truth. And the younger that we can encourage them to start embracing the truth, the biological, spiritual, emotional truth of what women are and what femininity is and what the interaction between the sexes is, the happier and healthier they're going to be. Uh, in an ideal world, there wouldn't be a place for us. We wouldn't have a need to go and teach this because this would be something that would be part of culture. Parents would pass this wisdom on to their children. And somewhere along the lines, this was lost. And I think that what we're doing is part of a revival of ancient wisdom that our cultures have lost.
Exactly, I would agree. And it takes a lot of courage because you're saying things that may be deemed politically incorrect, and you oftentimes you get attacked. And the funny thing is that it's more women that are kind of bothered and offended by this than men are. Men are very accepting of the fact that yes, everyone should restore to their natural order of how things should be. And I have two boys and a daughter, and oftentimes, when I have clients that have daughters, I say, watch your daughter because they're born with this natural femininity. And then as they enter school and society and stuff, it's kind of something else is taught. But if you just watch just the language that my daughter uses, she's only 4 years old, and the way that she is, and the way she pushes back when we say things that are not in line with her femininity and versus how my boys are, it's so different, so beautiful, and complements each other. But it's so interesting because now we're trying to undo that in little kids where we're trying to kind of be like gender neutral, and that it's ridiculous. They're born that way. And again, this isn't woo woo stuff, it's science. Your daughter, when she was in utero, was marinated in estrogen and your son was in testosterone. So science, you can't go against your natural genetic makeup and then expect things to be in balance. It's just not going to work out that
Uh,
way.
Absolutely. Anytime we try to fight nature, nature wins, and nature tends to push out unhealthy things. And if we cling too tightly to unhealthy things, we get pushed out of nature. And we see that people are getting prematurely. We have the best medical care that history has ever been capable of providing, and look how many people are sick. Look how
Yeah.
many people I meet. I'm almost 40. I meet people that are in their mid 20s, and they look as old as I do. I meet people who are my age, and I think that they're my father's age until I ask them how old they are. And this is quite common because people are simply not living according to nature, according to the rules of nature. In fact, the very concept that nature has rules is rejected by so many people, and therefore they can't have a happy life until they understand how to live with what they're naturally intended to do. It's when we behave in a certain way, or when we dress in a certain way, when we act in a certain way towards other people, we send a message out to them. And what's the message that women who are feminine send out to the world?
That they are in balance and in harmony with nature, and that they are being, living, acting, sleeping, eating in accordance. I use this example with my 14-year-old of how would, if you saw an animal in the wild behaving as another animal or as another species, you would be worried. You would think that that creature is ill, it's behaving strangely. And that's kind of how we're behaving not in accordance, as you said, with nature, and then we're expecting everything else to align itself to us. Well, um, can you be a masculine, uh, dominant masculine energy woman and have a great life? Yes, on some level, but you're going to have to exert a lot of control over your environment. You're going to have your husband or your partner behave a certain way unnaturally. You're going to have to control your kids. You're going to have to work really hard in your career because, um, as all of us know, that trying to go against nature requires a lot of effort and energy. And that's what, as you said, it's aging us, it's exhausting us. Let go, relax, and go with the flow of who you really are, and watch how effortlessly life flows along for you.
I love that. That's beautiful. Um, what would you say to a woman who's hesitant to explore femininity and to give up some of that masculine energy and let herself cultivate her femininity? What would you say to such a woman?
Oh, and this is our work, right? We hear this all day long. And I think, as you mentioned, a lot of women have this kind of fear that's been kind of placed on them from society that femininity is weak. Femininity is so powerful. It's powerful in a different way. It's not powerful in the sense that masculine energy is powerful, but it beautifully complements masculinity. And so that's kind of the work that we have to convince is and show them and said, how, first of all, how is what you're doing working out for you? And then,
I love that question. I ask that all the time. People will tell me, "Oh, I'm doing X, Y, and Z that goes against your advice," and I'm like, "And how's that working out for you?" "Well, I'm single and I live in my mom's basement." "Well, okay, then maybe."
yeah, or I'm married and
Yeah,
my husband acts like I'm his roommate, right? And
yeah.
so, yeah, he wants nothing to do with you romantically. So you have to understand that feminine energy is incredibly powerful in a different way. And once you restore that natural balance, women who have trouble losing weight all of a sudden without changing anything in their diet will start releasing some of that weight. Because when you exert a lot of force and control and trying to manipulate things against nature, it's going to manifest in other ways. It may be, again, you may be on medications, you may be holding on to a lot of weight, you may be, you may end up finding a man and have children that you can control and manipulate to live in line, but then you may find that you're having issues in your career or somewhere
Oh, wait till
nature.
your children become teenagers. If you overly control children when they're young, When they become teenagers, they have a lot to rebel against, and then you're going to be in trouble. With my
Exactly.
son, I always say that my goal is to raise him up to be an independent man at the speed which he's comfortable with doing that. And if you try to keep that control on, someone likened it to holding a spring. If you hold a spring and then suddenly release it, the spring shoots off. Kids will
But
eventually leave home. If you hold that spring and slowly release it at the appropriate time, then you have control. The spring will stay in its place, and you still have the spring with you. So your children will. This is very common nowadays. Children who are in their early 20s is becoming estranged from their parents because of that abusive level of control they have over them, trying to make them fit into an unnatural box. And it's even marriages. You might make it work during the time the kids are at home when you're both kind of distracted. But what happens when the children grow up and move away? A lot of couples get divorced at that point because they haven't got that, the Chinese call it yin yang. They haven't got that thing
Mhm.
mixed in such a way that it is stronger, that it can withstand changes in lifestyle, such as retirement or having your children move away. So it's very, very important.
Exactly. And speaking of relationships, we think, if we just find the right man, right? And you can go through, I work with women all the time that have been through 10 men, but it's like they had the same exact relationship because you're still the same woman entering into that relationship. And even in my own marriage, once I finally figured this, stuff out, and it was like a punch in the gut that it was me all along. It was my energy that I was bringing into the relationship. Once I started shifting, I mean, things
It froze up for a second. Don't worry, I can just edit that out. That kind of editing's not a problem.
okay. Are we back?
Yep.
Okay. So we went from being kind of good roommates and good parents to my husband chasing me, pursuing me, romancing me, just like, before marriage, which for us was a very short period. But I mean, we have this wonderfully romantic relationship. We've been married for 10 years. We actually last month celebrated our 10-year anniversary, and people are shocked because they think we just got married when they see our relationship. And it's the same man. I didn't have to go divorce him and find someone new and make the whole entire mistake all over again. All I had to do was shift my energy.
Yep.
And it's like this moment to moment exchange. Even when I get women, I mean, sometimes I will get women, but you don't understand, his mother. I'm like, it has nothing to do with his mother, his culture, his language. All of these things are very superficial.
It's having some problems again.
200 years of his culture. So people are, women are, there's a pushback, but once they start implementing, the kind of the work and doing the inner work, then they realize, oh my God, I get so many success stories. We've had this year 7 couples that were separated, meaning living in different households. Um, and I wasn't working with the men. I was just only simply working with the women. So the men don't even have to be involved in the equation, and they are 7 of them moved back in together and are giving it a second go. We've had rings, people dating for years on end. Finally, the woman implements feminine energy and relaxes and goes with the flow and does all of her inner work, breaks down all the walls of society and masculine energy, and she gets the ring. So, I mean, it's literally, they're like, it's like magic and like it's nature.
Well, by and large, 80% of divorces are initiated by the woman. Men really want to make things work. Okay.
They're
And
loyal.
we don't, it's pretty rare that a man wants to switch wives. What he's just hoping is that his wife starts treating him like a man. That's
Exactly.
usually what it is. They don't want to switch women. They just want the woman, and they don't want the woman to be different. They want her to simply treat them like a man. And exactly by acting in a more feminine way, they do that, and men respond very quickly to that. For a lot of men, it's like, oh, finally, the deserts are being watered. They
Yeah.
feel like it's like sustenance coming to them. So it
Yes.
really is, and that's magnificent. All of those marriages that you're saving, and the children that are in those marriages. This is changes society, and with coaching, it's great. We get this one-on-one work, but with the videos that you make, with the videos I make, and ones like this, we get to spread this to a much wider audience. And this is very important because there are a lot of people who aren't yet ready for coaching. They're not ready. They're not that open yet, but they can already start to apply some of these ideas in their own life, and they can get themselves in a position where they could be open to drastic improvement in their relationships.
Yes. And that's a lot of women that come to me say, that when they saw my videos, like something instinctively made sense to them. They had been struggling in relationships for most of their lives. And so they will just follow the free advice first, start seeing changes, then buy some of my digital programs, really implement some of those, some of that deep inner work. And then actually, my requirement for working with me one on one is that you have to be primed for that by doing some of the free videos and then the digital programs, because it's like you have to set the stage for what you're about to receive. And again, feminine energy is all about being receptive. And I think the number one thing that women struggle with is being receptive.
Yeah, I do find for women it's a little easier to take advice, but they will tend to take a piece of advice, apply it, and then if it doesn't work on the first try or two, they give up on it. And
Yes.
that's not a fully receptive to the ideas. Men, it's the other way around. You can tell a man something for 3 months, and finally he will, in coaching, and finally he will apply it. He'll get a good result, but he'll never go backwards from what he started. And women, it's more flexible. They'll try it, and then next week they'll forget about it again. And so it's an interesting difference between coaching men and women. And yes, it's very important to be open though with coaching, not just coaching. We have to be open to improving our lives in general. And that means to some degree we have to maintain a certain skepticism about who we get advice from. But once we recognize that someone's program or someone's plan is working, especially for other people, when you can show that, then we need to have a certain trust in that person and in what they're suggesting to us, and then try it and experiment with it and see how it works. And like you mentioned before, the usual thing is, so how's that working out for you when people say they want to keep doing it the way they've been doing it? I think it was Einstein that said that insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. And the way to get those different results is to try something different. And I really enjoy very much, so do some of my clients as well, your videos. And even though I'm a man, I enjoy watching your videos because as a man, I want to understand women. Women are half of the planet's population. Men need to understand women in order to understand how to get along with them and have happy and productive lives with women. And so I think it's good for men to watch your videos as well. And one of the questions I wanted to ask is, where can people find out more about you?
So I do have a website, theuniverseguru.com, and then I have a YouTube channel as well. Now my YouTube channel started off with a whole different, I didn't know what I was doing, but it's kind of evolved into this thing with feminine energy and relationships. The funny thing is that at some point a couple of years ago, my husband and I were doing financial videos on my YouTube channel, which are still very popular, and we went from having like 90% female audience to about 80, and we got 20% men. But the interesting thing is that since I started doing feminine energy videos and doing coaching and this work, our actually male ratio went up. And that shows you how, even though I'm only talking about women and femininity and feminine energy, it shows you how men are deeply craving this work and this kind of comeback of the reawakening of the feminine.
Yes, a lot of men are curious how they can stimulate the women in their lives to be more feminine. And what I say to men is that the more masculine they are, the more it will stimulate the women in their life to be feminine. And for women, the more feminine they are, the more it will stimulate masculinity in the men in their life. And so the way that we'll do this, it's not one gender or the other that's responsible. It's each one making a bit of an effort and things will improve. And this,
Exactly.
we've had 75 or more years of a really an attack on femininity first, and later now we see a major attack on masculinity as well. And it's not going to be resolved culturally overnight. Individuals can make massive changes very rapidly, but culturally this will take some time. And to some extent, it's going to be one person at a time. Individuals choosing to live according to nature, and to have that reciprocity between the sexes that has been missing for so long. And this is people like you and myself promoting these ideas is really going to change the world, because they've spent trillions of dollars propagandizing women to be men and now propagandizing men to be women. And we can undo all of that just by telling people the truth, because the
Exactly.
truth is so much more powerful.
Yes, and I think people are craving those healthy role models, that those healthy feminine role models, masculine role models, and then couples and families. And how does this actually? That's actually the one of the number one questions I get asked is that, well, how does that look like in real life? Well, how does the feminine look like in real life? And so, actually, one of the intensive that I lead is called the sacred feminine in the 21st century, because they're so confused on how, well, then can I still go to work, like how does that work? And so yes, it's not an on off switch, it's a dimmer switch, right? It's like a dial up and a dial. So the beautiful thing is that you get immediate feedback, and I like things that you get immediate feedback, because once you're kind of going back into kind of the masculine realm, it's an immediate thing. And where you start feeling off, you start feeling irritated and agitated, and then you can go back. Same thing in relationships. It's a moment to moment exchange, right? Because I know that if I'm kind of working harder in my business or something comes up and I lack in my self care, and all of a sudden I'll notice my husband behaving differently. I'll notice my kids getting kind of irritated, and and that's good news, because you can self correct, you can course correct.
And that's a part of developing the feminine empathy as well, to notice the results that you're getting in the people around you. And it's better that we notice these results than that we don't. So I have clients that told me, well, I did a test about my love languages, and I just found out that mine and my spouse's were completely different. And oh, no wonder we were having these problems, because we were working at crossways trying to show love for each other in ways that weren't particularly interesting to the other partner. And this knowledge, by digging into your relationship and figuring out what you can do to make it better, even if it's only on one side, even if it's just the man or just the woman doing this, makes tremendous improvement in marriages, makes people happier. I love when people say, it's like you switch the light on. And
Mhm.
now, okay, the mess is still there in the room, but now I can start cleaning it up.
I
In the
love
dark, you can't clean anything. You turn the light on, you see it's messy. Okay, now I'm conscious of the mess and I can clean it. And that's really what a coach does. Helps you switch that light on. You still have to clean your own mess up, but
that.
you do need sometimes help to get the light on, to give you perspective. And so, if especially for couples, go check out your website, women and men as well. I think your videos are also excellent. A lot of my friends find them inspirational. Thank you very much for joining us today, Mina.
Thank you so much, Noah, for having me. And this was a really lovely conversation, and we'll definitely have to do it again.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure. If you enjoyed this information, subscribe to us, join us at smv4k.com, and for the real magic, get one-on-one personalized coaching. Share this message on your social media, and please support us using the links below.